Liddy moved across Pennsylvania Avenue to the president's re-election headquarters. His new boss, Jeb Magruder, was not prepared for the phenomenon that the White House had sent him.
I have lots to talk about with people over at the White House.
Liddy was in the office, and I said something as an aside that wouldn't it be good if we could get rid of Jack Anderson?
Jack Anderson's column was a thorn in the side of the Nixon campaign. Liddy knew how to remove it.
Gordon Liddy emerged from the office. He brushed by me and he said, Jeb just told me to take care of Jack Anderson.
He said, "What's that?" I said, "I am to kill Jack Anderson. I am on my way to kill Jack Anderson." He said, "Oh my God." He took off like a deer running down the hall.
I then went into Magruder's office and I said, "Jeb, did you just tell him to rub out Jack Anderson?"
He came back in, and I said, to Gordon, I was just talking off the cuff. I wasn't serious. And Liddy looked at me with that stern, sort of macho look, and he said, "Never give me an order for a hit job that you don't mean, because I'll do it."
Liddy was impatient to get on with his intelligence operation. Bypassing Magruder, he went straight to the White House to ask John Dean just how big he was supposed to think.
I said, "Well, if you're talking about an all-out, full offensive and defensive capability political intelligence operation, you're talking about one hell of a lot of money, first of all." And he said, "How about $500,000 for openers?" And I said, "Well, you're in the ballpark there."
Liddy promptly produced a $1 million plan. He needed the approval of Attorney General John Mitchell, whom Nixon had selected to run his campaign. In Mitchell's office in the Justice Department, the temple of law enforcement, Liddy presented his plan, codenamed Gemstone.
Gordon had with him these very expensive, well-done charts. I think there were 7 of them. Each had different code names, and each one described some type of activity that would, in a sense, harass the Democrats.
Each different kind of operation was given the name of a precious jewel. We had so many operations, we quickly ran out of precious jewels. We went into semi-precious jewels, and by the time we were finished, we were down to coal and brick.
He said, clearly one of the major problems of this campaign is going to be the problem of demonstrations. And he said, I think, General, as he told John Mitchell, we have a good solution to that. I have retained the services of some really tough men. What I can do is direct these men to kidnap campaign leaders, drug them, and take them below the Mexican border and put them out of commission.
Mr. Mitchell said, well, where do you get people like that? And I said, it's my understanding they're from organized crime. And he said, well, what is that going to cost us?
I think for Mitchell, Dean, and I, it was rather ludicrous. I mean, here we were, in a sense, sitting in the Attorney General of the United States office, and here's Gordon Liddy talking about some of the more bizarre plans.
He said, I've made some preliminary arrangements to get a Chinese motifed houseboat that I can park on one of the canals down near the convention center in Miami, and it will have two-way cameras in this Chinese motifed houseboat, and I'll use prostitutes to go out and seduce into the houseboat high campaign officials.
They were to linger about and attract the attention of mid-range Democratic staffers who would try to impress them with how important they were by saying, oh, watch tomorrow, this is going to happen, that's going to happen. We would get all of that.
And I said, Gordon, you've got to be kidding. And he really was very offended by my interruption. And taking that offense, he said, I want to assure the General these are the finest girls from Baltimore. At the end of Liddy's presentation, John Mitchell took kind of a long puff on his pipe, and a little cloud came up over his head and sort of sat there for a minute, and he said, Gordon, he said, I just don't think this is quite what we had in mind.
So I said to Gordon, I said, well, why don't you cut out all this other fluffy stuff that it really isn't what we're looking for, and concentrate on the electronic surveillance.
On the issue of bugging, Nixon's Attorney General had taken a high moral tone, at least in public.
Mr. Mitchell, how careful will you be about invasion of privacy in the matter of surveillance and wiretap?
Well, since I believe so fully and wholeheartedly in the protection of the privacy of the individual, I will make sure that nothing is done in this area of electronic surveillance that will invade the privacy of individuals.
This same Mitchell sat down a second time to hear Liddy's revised plan to bug the Democrats' headquarters. Before he could finish, John Dean spoke up.
I just said, gentlemen, I just don't think that the things that are being discussed here ought to be discussed in the office of the Attorney General of the United States.
Dean ran away, got in an elevator, and took off. He did not want me to start building him a new ass the way I did the last time. But I had Magruder, and I really ripped into Magruder, saying, you know, what's going on here?
In desperation, Liddy turned for help to Howard Hunt, his old partner in crime.
Liddy said, look, you've got this great friend and principal in the White House, Chuck Colson. He's got all kinds of influence. It's very important to me that this gemstone project go forward because it's my career. Will you introduce me to Colson?
It was about 5:30, 6 o'clock one night, typically frantic day in the White House. My secretary says, Howard Hunt is here, has a friend with him. I'd never met Gordon Liddy.
I started talking about our problem about getting a decision on the gemstone plant. Colson did not want to hear about the gemstone plant. He said, wait a minute, I don't want to hear any of this. What you need is a decision, correct? Yes. He said, fine. Picked up the phone, called Magruder.
I said, Jeb, these guys are in here. They can't get a decision. What are you guys going to do? Either give them a yes or a no. Don't leave them hanging.
What he did was clearly indicate to me he wanted, the president wanted, he always used the president, wanted to get this thing off the dime, get it going. So he wanted me to make a decision.
There was pressure from the White House, from me, and from the president to the committee to get their campaign intelligence activity going.
Nixon was most concerned about one Democrat, Larry O'Brien, often his most effective critic.
I thought this administration was a law and order administration.
O'Brien was, at that time, the chairman of the Democratic National Committee, the head of the Democratic Party, and at the same time was taking into his own pocket a very, very substantial fee from Howard Hughes.
The billionaire recluse Howard Hughes had for years been making clandestine payments to both political parties. Nixon was determined to exploit O'Brien's link to Hughes to damage the Democrats.
I first saw it in the form of a memo that had been dictated by the president on Air Force One to Haldeman saying, isn't it about time we make Larry O'Brien accountable for his retainer with Howard Hughes?
Larry O'Brien's office as chairman of the Democratic National Committee now became the key target of the bugging operation. It was located in the huge luxury complex called the Watergate.
What Colson wanted me to do was to get off the stick, as he said, and get Liddy's project to bug Larry O'Brien's phone and so on off the ground and get it funded.
The decision on Liddy's project would be taken in Key Biscayne, Florida. Campaign manager John Mitchell was on holiday there, but Magruder could wait no longer. He interrupted his boss's Easter break to get the plan approved. What happened at this meeting has always been a point of fierce controversy.
Now, did you approve the Liddy plan?
At the Key Biscayne,
Yes.
I have never approved the Liddy plan as we're discussing it at any time, and certainly I didn't approve it at Key Biscayne.
John Mitchell died in 1988, still denying he had ever approved the gemstone plan. The surviving participants, however, tell a different story.